Hello dear viewers, welcome to Lorenzo's channel with a mission a day. We are currently flying mission 35, and for you longtime viewers, this vessel might seem familiar. It's Bob Kerman's ride, which he used to take up Kearney, or he was going to use to take down Kearney from orbit, but then Kearney got stubborn and took his own ship down, which he crashed. So that's the story of Kearney. That did not go well. But Bob has ever since been lounging here in low Kerbin orbit, waiting for the need to rescue someone. Well, that need has not yet materialized, well, apart from Jebediah, who is currently stuck in solar orbit, but we do have a fully functional interplanetary exploration vehicle ready, which is ultimately headed to Val. Bob, having spent about 3 years in orbit now, would love the opportunity to go along. So we are going to rendezvous with the Val station that is now in a slightly higher orbit than it was before. The engine tests have worked out great, and between yesterday's episode and today's episode I have tweaked the fuel in the tank so that now it flies straight and true, at least of at thrust levels of up to 50%. So that's a lot better than it was, and that should help in making the necessary burns. After Bob here gets on board, just going to do the plane change maneuver first. After Bob gets on board the Val station, that will take off to Minmus, where it will refuel using kethane mined fuel. Something else I did off screen is land the Minmus fuel miner, land that there, and mine a full set of full tank of fuel. So once we get to Minmus, we should have at least 2 full tanks of fuel waiting for us. So that's amazing. And what else do I have to say? Welcome to the 2 new subscribers I saw on the channel. Now I'm currently at 86 subscribers, but it will be about a week before you see this video. So that number can quite possibly be a lot higher, and at least I'm hoping it will be. Coming up to 100 subscribers and 20,000 views, still relatively low numbers for YouTube fame standards, but I do enjoy knowing that you are watching it and subscribing, and there's more and more of you. So welcome, and I hope you will enjoy the videos to come. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to do a 100 subscriber special video edition. That just seems kind of corny to me. When I do something funny, I make a video of it, and when I don't, I do not. So if you have crazy requests, I could do something, but I'm not really planning to do anything that crazy. I'm just going to keep on making funny videos. When I was making StarCraft videos like half a year ago, I promised a underwater spearfishing video as a 100 subscriber present sort of thing. I would still like to do that. The problem is that my underwater camera broke. So I'm probably going to do that video after all, just not upon reaching 100 subscribers, but when getting a new underwater camera, if my warranty decides to cover that. If it does not, then I don't know what's going to happen. Probably not underwater camera footage. I've not had the most luck with underwater filming. My snorkel camera, that's rated to a depth of 5 meters, has inexplicably broken. I did take it to about thrice its rated depth, like 10-15 meters, something like that, but that was months ago, and not just now it broke. Also, I have a regular Canon camera with a underwater housing, or at least my sister has it. She found it in the Red Sea. But the O-ring for that just went bust, so that's useless as well. Usually it should be good till 40 meters, but without an O-ring I don't think it's even good to, well, just any water, like 1-2 meters, and it should flood. So I've not tried that. I'm not currently in the business of underwater photography because all my equipment has broken. So that's why I make space videos instead. Not really, but it's a good explanation. Here we are burning to catch up to the Val station. And what I've noticed, that yesterday I detailed my plans of attaching this ship to that station and taking it along for the ride. Possibly, it's possible you have noticed, but this ship does not have a docking port. So that is definitely not going to happen. Bob is going to swim on over on EVA and get to the station that way. And as soon as that's done, well, this ship will then be left in, well, graveyard orbit, really this orbit, but then with no station in it, because the station is going to go away. I'm not sure what I'm saying. I am saying that the ship will be left behind and Bob will climb aboard to the station and set off in it. That has some dire consequences for our friend Jebediah, because Jebediah then won't have a seat on the Val station. We could try and push his ship, but I think that would be sort of suicide, so we're not going to do that. It's just that Jebediah probably won't be picked up by this interplanetary vehicle. That means Jebediah's pickup mission, because he will certainly be rescued, will have to be done by someone else. Now, this vehicle has just run out of fuel, but I do still have some in a different tank. I'm not sure why that's not being used, but I'm just going to pump it into the main tank and hope I can do that before the space station gets too far away, because we still have a relative velocity of 230 meters per second, so it's rather fast still. Anyway, I have some fuel for my engines again, and I can resume thrusting in the general direction of the space station. What I'm doing now, for those of you that are not familiar with rendezvous procedure, is first I've tweaked my orbit to be at least a bit close to the station. 27 kilometers, not that close, but we have some fuel to spare and we don't really care about docking, so we just need to get in the general vicinity. Then I use the navbal in target relative mode to kill relative velocity. That means we're going the same speed around Kerbin, just at 27 kilometers separation. That basically means the same as establishing the same orbit, because if you're having the same speed and direction at the same altitude, you are in the same orbit. There's no way you can have the same speed yet be in a different orbit. The orbits will be a little bit different because you are not in exactly the same spot, but they will be close enough. After you've done that, you point at the target, that's this pink reticule on the navbal, and then just burn directly to it. When the distances are large, like here, you want to do it quite fast, because you are not burning in flat space like a 2D piece of paper. You are actually traveling in curved space, because Kerbin, big boy that it is right there, is curving space. That's actually what gravity does, and that makes straight trajectories between moving targets not quite straight. And you can see, if you pay attention to the navbal here, that our velocity indicator, our velocity vector, the yellow marker, will slowly drift away from the target marker, the pink one that points to the direction of the target, and this points into the direction of travel. Now, when we burned, it was pointing straight at it, and now when I time accelerate, that is going to drift apart. That's because of the curved space around Kerbin, and that's what complicates orbital rendezvous maneuvers. If you have a large distance to cross, like 27 kilometers, you want to do it rather fast. I'm doing it at 100 meters per second now, because if you don't, this drifting effect will be very, very pronounced. If you're at small distances like this, 6 kilometers, oops, I'm doing it wrong, I'm increasing my speed instead of decreasing it. Once you're at like 6 kilometers, you can get away with lower speeds, because you're closer, the curvature effect is less, and you are there faster even at a low speed. And once you're really close, like less than 2 kilometers, it is fine to treat the area as flat space, because the drifting due to the curvature is quite low. Same goes for higher orbits. If you are in a higher orbit around Kerbin, then the curvature is also less, at least it's relatively less. So if you have trouble rendezvousing, try it in a higher orbit, or try it around a body with a lower gravity, so that the orbital velocity is a lot slower and things become easier. There's a larger margin of error. Now, we are currently heading to the Val station at 20 meters per second, and I've potentially set this up for disaster, because there's no more fuel remaining in this space pod. If we are on a collision course, which is possible, it's too far out for me to tell, although the fact that this yellow marker is not exactly on the pink marker is a good sign, is hopeful to me. If we are in fact on a collision course, then there's nothing we can do about it now, apart from moving the station out of the way, which I'm not going to do. As this vessel is now useless to us, I'm going to EVA with Bob, and mostly because he has lights on his helmet. So we can let go of the spacecraft. This is now trash. And we are now together with the trash, headed for the Val station. We are doing so at 26 meters per second, more or less. We don't have an accurate reading anymore, but let's illuminate this bullet. If it is going to hit the station, I'm going to cry, and I'm not quite sure what next episodes are going to be like, because we worked for this station quite a long time, and I would really like to use it to go to Val one day. So I'm going to accelerate a little bit towards the station, because we have plenty of jetpack fuel. I'm going to deplete it until 90%. And that should leave us with enough to slow down. I reckon these, if I recall, these jetpacks, they have about 500 meters per second of delta V, which is a ludicrous amount. It's enough to get into orbit from Minmus. It's enough to almost get into orbit around the moon, and you can just basically you can almost do interplanetary transfers with the maneuver suit. Compare that to real life, the manned maneuvering unit used by NASA astronauts until the Challenger mission, that had about 25 meters per second of delta V. Quite a lot less indeed. And they are not even in use anymore now. Well, I reckon it stands to reason that nothing is in use anymore now, because they don't have a space shuttle program anymore. But even before the space shuttle got retired, they retired the manned maneuvering units, and they instead opted for SAFER. It stands for Small Aid for Extravehicular Rescue, or something like that. Simplified Aid for Extravehicular Rescue. That had 3 meters per second of delta V. So compare that with our Kerbals, and they can price themselves lucky, because they have a lot more than that. They have 500 meters per second, which allows them to jet around like happy jetpack animals. We're within a kilometer of the station, and you can notice that by the marked drop in frame rate. I am going to avoid videotaping anything close to the station for that reason, because that's just not that pleasant to look at, I suppose. So I'm going to shut up now, and I'll see you when I'm at the station and burning for Minmus. So see you then. Oh, I'm approaching so fast. I wasn't paying attention, and suddenly the station zoomed into view, approaching really, really fast. Fortunately, the jetpack did manage to slow us down. I did manage to do that, and now we are in the dark, unfortunately, and I'm going to have to find the hitchhiker canister. I think it's over there. It's the command pod for the manned excursion module. If the ion probe, which is dangling under that solar panel, if that finds an interesting moonlet or something, then this vessel can take a Kerman out to it, and I suppose it could even try and land, even though it doesn't have any landing legs. So for extra Kerbin flag planting activities, this is the go-to solution. So we are coming up on the hatch, and I'm already breaking my promise of trying to avoid recording in this frame rate hell. This is going to be difficult, not hitting that solar panel, but I'm sure Bob is up to the task. He's up to the task. And I'm going to shut up again. You can just trust me that I managed to get him into the space station. So, see you on the way to Minmus. Here we are. The inclination burn for Minmus has been completed, and I'm happy to report that the station, or the ship as it now should be called I suppose, is capable of burning at full thrust. So the 3 nuclear engines aren't worthless after all. It's not a smooth affair, not by any chance, not by any stretch of the meaning. I need occasional pulses of RCS to keep everything balanced, and as you can see, the 2 attached modules are stretching back quite precariously, like they're going through an atmosphere. It's just the acceleration tugging them back. We are accelerating at about half a G to a G. Let's count if we have a second. We're accelerating about 5 meters per second per second. As you can see here in the maneuver bar, we still have about 400 meters per second of delta V to impart to this burn. Our fuel reserves are looking good. We are at, well, just about 2200 oxidizer and 1800 fuel. That should be plenty to get us to Minmus, where of course all our tanks will be topped up. Monopropellant will be an issue in the mission. I can see that already. We're at 190 out of 300. We didn't start with a full tank, but this burn has already used up about 10 units of monopropellant. So hopefully with all the tanks full, the ship will be a little bit better balanced. Otherwise, when the monopropellant runs out and we only have reaction wheels, we will be limited to lower thrust burns, because we will need to keep us pointed in the right direction. For now though, we can abuse our monopropellant to keep us straight, and that will allow us to escape Kerbal. The burns from now on should be relatively minor if all goes well. We are expecting a big burn around Joule to get us into orbit, but the burns around the moons, around Minmus, and otherwise even the burn leaving Minmus, we'll have plenty of time for that because of Minmus's low gravity. That will all be rather short burns where it won't be a problem to reduce the thrust, the throttle. So now I'm going to establish orbit around Minmus. Hey, I retracted all the solar panels, but apparently I forgot one. Here we go, retract that to put the ship in flight mode as far as that's a thing. No solar panels extended, no comms dishes extended, just RCS ports and nuclear fire out the back to get us to where we're going. Well, I'll cut the film now to when we're around Minmus. I'll probably show you the rendezvousing of the refueling miners, so you can see that, and I'll see you there. Hello, I'm back, and surprise surprise, we are over Minmus. There it is. Look at that. And I have, if you're paying attention to my nav ball, I have missed my I was going to say launch window, but no, my burn window, and that's my own fault. I just skipped over it with time acceleration, not taking into account that it's quite laggy with the low FPS that this station gives me. I'm really hoping 0.23 will optimize that a bit, and then I can fly it with reckless abandon. I had hoped that taking it away from the vicinity of Kerbal would also help. That has proven to not help as much. I think there's just too many parts on the station. There's also good news. I'm using monopropellant with abandon because I figured out how to replenish that. The kethane miner I have, it does make monopropellant, but on that itself there is no RCS tank, so can't use it there. But we can bring up a tank of kethane, dock to the station, and then refine it into monopropellant. So that problem has, well, no permanent solution, but for now it is sort of solved. The orbit we got into is weird and inclined, and a very high periapsis and a very low periapsis actually. This is just about safe. Anyway, that's fine. The orbital requirements of Minmus are lax, not a lot of delta V required for any of these transfers. So I'm going to switch to the miner. I think this is it. Switch to it, and as you recall, before this episode I filled that up. I did it off screen, so it should be completely full of fuel and kethane. So there we are. It's just not full of electric charge, but that's alright. We can regenerate that in orbit. So we are here. The space station is here, and that's orbiting that way, so we're going to take off and head left, otherwise known as west. And we set that as a target just in case, and I'm going to punch it here so we may rise off the surface. It's night, and I'm always forgetting to pay attention to the time of day when landing at Minmus, because this is a moon that is quite hard to land on if and when you're doing so at night, because there is a lot of slopes, a lot of inclines. In fact, when landing this thing for this mining session, I landed it on a steep slope at night and only just managed to recover that. So it's quite dangerous to land at night. You have to look out what you do. To tilt up a little bit. Is that the right direction? That is in fact the wrong direction. I have to go burn a little bit more this way. So here we are, establishing an orbit nice and equal with this one. I'm going to leave it like this for now, and just going to burn prograde for a bit. Meeting up with something in Minmus orbit from the surface is rather easy actually, because the orbits are slow. The surface is super easy to take off from because there is hardly any gravity. You can pitch over almost immediately. which makes things nice and easy. So here we are, we have now our apoapsis at the level of this orbit, and we can now tweak, we have all the time in the world to tweak an encounter with a maneuver node. So let's do that. First change the tilt so that it exactly matches that orbit, and then I'm going to increase, ooh, not too much, not too much. Let's have a look. And if we do it like this, that's wonderful. If I get here and change my orbit to this shape, we will meet in exactly one orbit. Well, it won't be the exact same shape, but good as enough. Well, this is very sensitive. I'm just going to do that by burning when I get there. And get there we will in 14 minutes. So, can just time accelerate that. And I've done a quick calculation. We are carrying 760 units of liquid fuel. The spaceship needs about 1500. So to top it off completely and leave some margin for error, we need 2 or 3 trips. So that's not too bad at all. Oh, I'm missing my burn node. That is rather bad because we are trying to make a precision approach. So here we can see the orbit expanding. Stop it. Before going any further, I'm going to match up because we're just as good as at the descending node. I'm going to match the inclinations, because if you do an inclination change and then move the node, pro or retrograde, that inclination changes with it, so that is not great. First 10 meters per second to change the inclination. And this ship is so nice and nimble as compared to the big lumbering station. It is truly a joy to fly with FPS with responsive controls. That's really, really great. So we can do this 10 meter per second inclination change, and now we can focus on getting the encounter. I'm going to do it without maneuver nodes because we saw the encounter would happen. So we're just going to point prograde and burn until we see the encounter happen on the actual orbit view. So I might have to drop down the orbit of the station a little bit because this is needlessly wasting delta V. On the other hand, if we are going to make 3 trips, wait a second. Well, there's some more needlessly wasted delta V for you. Anyway, what I'm saying is we are going to do 3 trips. We have fuel to spare, so a little bit of inefficiency doesn't really matter in that regard. Reversing now to slow down, because... oh, now I get it. That maneuver node was for next orbit, so I'd have to wait an orbit and then boost. Separation now would be 200 kilometers. That is unacceptably long. So let's see if I can make a node at apoapsis that will actually result in a meeting of the spaceships. Let's see. Yes, and this looks like a hugely roundabout burn, hugely wasteful, but as you can see, this is only 17 meters per second, and that's the beauty of Minmus. You can basically make rendezvous happen in a single orbit no matter where you are, because you can make huge changes in orbital period, in orbital phase, for low amounts of delta V. This is why, apart from of course the low gravity that makes it simple to get fuel into orbit in the first place, but this is why I chose Minmus as a refueling depot over Moon. The Moon is closer to Kerbin, so it requires slightly less delta V to get to from Kerbin, but it's so much heavier than Minmus that lifting the fuel out of the gravity well would take a much larger lander slash miner than we have here, and well, that would be less efficient, wasting more fuel in transporting the fuel. And the sole reason we want to have this miner is that we want more fuel efficiency, so that doesn't make any sense. This is why we choose the lightest possible parent body to have a refueling depot on, and that is Minmus. There are lighter ones in the solar system, but to put it on Gilly or Bob for instance, that makes makes little sense because that's really far out. This one is close to home, and it's our trusty gas station. Look, separation of 7 kilometers. That is great, and we are definitely happy with that. And so going to warp time forwards until we are there, and then matching speeds with the space station. Let's see. Going to drop out of time warp here, and as we can see there it is 17 kilometers in the distance. Jolly good. I'm just going to time warp a little bit because we know from the map view it's going to come within like 7. So waiting for that 7, 8, 7, that's good enough. So now, as I did before, we're going to cancel first the relative velocity. This is 35 meters per second, so from that previous orbit the total rendezvous cost is 35 plus 17 makes 52 meters per second of delta V. Of course we're going to use a little bit more because we need some maneuvering now that we are in fact rendezvoused, but it's going to be about 100 to 150 from orbit, from the surface about to 300. And if you make a quick comparison to Kerbal, where getting into orbit requires about 4.5 kilometers per second of delta V, you can immediately see why refueling around Minmus is in fact a great idea. So now this docking sequence will be familiar to you, so I'm not going to show it. Also, it will be horribly laggy. So I will be back with you when we are at the station. See you then. And here we are, docked to the side of the space station, and this is quite a good site if I do say so myself. And we have now 2 full fuel tanks, well almost to the brim, 2 full fuel tanks to fill this up. So let's do just exactly that, and then detach from the spaceship. Now I did bring some raw kethane, and with the power of the station we should be able to activate the monopropellant refining system and top up the station's monopropellant reservoirs. So as soon as this transfer is completed I'm going to do that. So activate monopropellant converter. So while we transfer, the monopropellant is being replenished. Yes, it is. Not very fast, but it is being replenished, and that is what counts. So let's see. We filled this tank. Now we are going to fill this one. Oh, it doesn't really matter because the space station is not going anywhere until it's completely full. So it doesn't matter in which order we fill the tanks. Balance for now is not an issue. Now I'm not going to show you multiple trips from the miner back to the surface and the space station. We're probably looking at 2 more trips. I'm going to do those off screen. So tomorrow we are going to start the mission with a burn towards Val, or Joule at any rate, and we will see how that goes. Hopefully we can get this station around Val. I'm going to look at our money and launch windows, and I might first send the robotic lander once again, or I'm going to send them simultaneously. So I'm going to send them simultaneously. So either you are going to see the space station go to Val, or if not, then you are going to see the robotic probe go to Val with another free seat. So that would free up the possibility of going to get Jebediah as well after we leave someone on Val. Well, then again, they would be left on Val. So the future is not quite certain, is what I'm saying. There might be various different things going on. All of them pretty awesome, I think. So that should be good. So I'm going to transfer out these last drops of fuel. That one is full. Needs to go in here. And I'm not forgetting to keep some fuel in the miner for it to land. I'm going to put all the oxidizer of this small tank in the left tank, all the fuel in the right tank, and then I'm going to fill that central tank with fuel that just was pumped into the station. So Then I have 2 of these small fuel tanks where 1 will do in a pinch, but now with the 2 I have a little bit more breathing room so I can find a premium drilling spot before returning once again. So see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. As you know, your view gave me 100 credits for subsequent missions and your subscription 1000 if you did not do that yet and you liked the video. Why not? It makes me happy to see the subscriptions go up, and you will get a notification as soon as new missions are posted. They will be every day at 6, unless I get sick or walk under a bus or something horrible like that. That's probably not going to happen, so there should be a steady stream of videos. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'm Lorenzo. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.